Hello, everybody, and welcome to Rocket Lasso Live, episode 2 of season 6. Already, we've been doing this for 6 years. It's absolutely crazy. So, we've got some tech upgrades a little bit. I've got a brand new, pretty powerful HP laptop, which is not my new computer, but it is way better than my current tower. So, I'm doing some experiments where I am running this through an Elgato video card thing. So, I'm going to be running this off my laptop, but I'm streaming from the tower and recording on the tower. So those two things are separated out from each other. But I don't want to keep you guys hanging or EJ hanging. So here is our special guest this week. We've got EJ in the house. How's it going, man? Thanks for joining me
What's
again.
up? How you doing? It's been I didn't even see what the last date of that Dropbox file was the last time I was on here, but it's great to be on here again.
Yeah, the Dropbox file. We share Dropbox folders when I have a guest on, so that we can swap files back and forth if we need to. And according to the Dropbox folder, it was season 2, and now it's season 6. So if you really haven't
Yeah.
been a guest in that long, that's crazy. But I did like 2 seasons where I just didn't really do guests, because it's kind of a big pain to set everything up. But I
I
wanted
know,
to
I'm
do more
such a
of it. I was
pain.
yeah, it was really oh you were a pain. um, but yeah, I want to get guests going. I've been really inspired ever since getting back from NAB. That was a great trip. It was really fun seeing you and Winbush and Andy and all the
Yeah.
Maxon people and all of our best friends from all around the world. So that's always super great. Um, but I'm super excited in particular to have you on because you covered a Redshift stuff and I didn't touch any Redshift stuff. And essentially, the extent of my current knowledge of the what's new in Redshift in like the last 8 months or so was watching your toon tutorial while on the plane to Vegas. So you're the man to talk to here.
Yeah, and
So
unfortunately my flight wasn't long enough to watch all of your particle tutorials, but I'm still working on that. Maybe I get a flight to Europe or Australia and I can have time to watch it.
yeah, that was part of the fun part of going to NAB is we go to like the MoGraph party and everything and just see people around the booth and almost every person's like, "Oh, dude, your video, I saw part of it."
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, it is 4 hours. I understand. Actually, there's some comments
Yeah.
of the video that are pretty great where it's like, it took multiple sessions, but I finally finished it. But hey, that's
Yeah.
just
It's
what
like
was
you should
required.
unlock an achievement badge or something.
Yeah. I have not seen a single complaint that it's too long. Just people saying, well, maybe there's
Yes.
just people who are like, that's too long. I'm not watching that. But you can always jump around to the parts you like. Anyway,
Yeah.
we got
No,
we
there's
got
a
lots
lot
of
new.
we got people popping in the chat. We got lots of regulars like Scott. We got Animation Hamster, Tobias, and Scott. Are you in both chat rooms? Action Movie Kids, Exponential Design,
Got Andy in the
Paul,
house.
Andy, Winbush. Well, Winbush was here earlier. I'm not sure if
Wimbush.
he's here now. He shouted out
Okay.
hello like 2 hours ago. But
What's
Andy,
up,
Sharon,
Sharon? Blue
Justin,
House.
Blue House. That's a new name, I think. Anyway, Chris,
Justin.
Cristobal. Oh, we got 3 Chris's in a row there. That's great. Anyway, how's
Wow.
everybody doing? Thanks for hanging out. If you've been a regular to Rocket Lasso Live for any part of the last 6 years, you know how we do this. Go ahead, feel free to type out questions. We're on Twitch and on YouTube. Type out a question. If we don't get to your question, feel free to post it again, 20 minutes later if we didn't see it and whatnot. I tend to scroll back and forth through the stream. We kind of get into like a role where if we're tackling something specific and we're just going, I'm not going to keep on checking the chat. So it's more like we check the chat. We're kind of wrapping something up, seeing if we're changing the topic. But while we're like, if EJ is showing off some Redshift stuff, then ask questions kind of on that topic, and maybe we'll tackle them as we're going. If we're doing Redshift and then you ask a question about the new particles, then I might save that until we're done talking about the toon stuff. Just keep that all in mind. Let's see. Yeah, but we're
Yeah,
covering
any
everything
tune
here.
questions, bring
Yeah,
them.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, we're definitely going to be doing toon stuff. So if anybody has any questions, start getting those together. But unless we got some reason to do otherwise, we can shift over to your screen, EJ, and you can start doing a little bit, kind of a broad overview of some of the new stuff and the concepts that are
Yeah.
there before you get specific. So okay, let me
Yeah.
click over. Let's see if this is working. This is all experimental. So click on guest desktop, and boop. Okay, excellent. Yeah, popped in.
Woo. Yeah.
I'm gonna shrink
All
us a
right.
little bit tinier in the corner just so I
Cool.
can see a little more object manager. But we are good. Okay, you're in
Yeah.
charge.
Cool. All right. So, first thing I'm going to do with the tune stuff is, especially if you're just doing look dev and stuff, here's a nice little tip for you. If you want to speed up your interactive render view here, do the freeze tessellation and freeze geometry, because then it won't calculate all those things. So nice little tip for you there, because I'm just going to be like working in this view, for all the toon stuff. So what we're going to do is to get the toon shader going. Of course, in the recent versions of Cinema 4D, Redshift's the default renderer. So that's all set. Now, you can build a toon shader from scratch, but why waste time when you can just go in here, click and hold, go down to materials, and there's this brand new, shiny, new toon material that we can then load up. And so we'll go and apply that to our little pug group here, and it's just going to apply this toon material to everything in the scene. And then as this updates here, actually put it on the wrong thing, put it on there. Actually, should I unfreeze? Oh, there we go.
Unfreeze.
Is it freeze geometry? I don't know what that froze. Did that
I've
freeze
never
something?
clicked the button. So
I don't know. But there we go. Yeah, so so there we got the toon shading inside of Redshift. It's been a long time coming, but it is finally here. So if we open up our Redshift toon material, you can see all the nodes that make up the default toon shader. So we have this new toon material node. Let me make this a little bit bigger here so you can see all of the things. And you can see we have these two tone maps, and these are basically just ramps, okay? So yeah, freeze tessellations on, I don't know which one of these is maybe freezing the update of the thing, but let me see. But in this ramp, this is getting plugged into the tone map node. If I remove that, you can see we're just back to, so that, okay, well, that didn't do anything. That didn't change anything. We're just back to our like normal diffuse shading, right? So all the magic's happening through this toon material. And basically what we're doing is we're quantizing that shading by plugging in a ramp into this tone map area. And if we click on the toon material, you can see what's going on there. So in this ramp, by default, we have 5, can I count? Yeah, 5 color chips. And you can see that depending on the lighting in the scene, which we have no lighting in the scene right now. So what that means is our default light is going to be our camera. Our camera view is going to be our light source, okay? So if we wanted to start, adding some lights into here, move this out of the way, and let me just go and add let's do an infinite light, because there's 2 different types of lights that work really well with the Newton toon, and that is infinite light. This is very similar to sketch and toon. I would always use either infinite lights or point lights, okay? So area lights don't really work all that well. There's a lot more fiddly stuff that you got to do to make it look good. So let's start with the infinite light. So we got the infinite light in the scene. You can see that update in our render view here. And if you're familiar with the infinite light, basically it just acts as this massive light source like the sun, and it's shooting parallel rays at our light source. So by simply moving around the light in your scene, it's actually not going to change anything. The only way you can change the light source direction with an infinite light is by rotating where this is aiming at. So the default aim is going to be in the positive Z direction here, this little blue axis arrow. And so right now you can see that represented here where the light's kind of coming from this direction. And so one of the things to note about any of the lights that you add with Toon Shader, for some reason they're very underpowered. So what I recommend you do is like crank this up to 2, and that's a little bit better. Or you can I'll just undo that and bring this up to say like 3 or something like that, or even 2, and you can see what's going on. So if we want to change the light direction, we'll hit R for rotate, and we'll rotate that blue arrow to wherever we want that main light source to come from. And you can see, if I bring back up the ramp node and the toon material, you can see that we're quantizing that diffuse shading into 5 different steps, okay? And this is represented across our object here. Now, one thing you can do to brighten this up a little bit if you wanted to is go in and grab a dome light. And you can see this is going to kind of brighten everything up a little bit. Okay. We can actually bring this.
Are you limited to particular types of lights? Because you just showed you can show a dome light and an infinite light.
I mean, all lights work, but like I said, the area light, if I bring in an area light, you have to kind of adjust the size a little bit. So let me just move this down. There's our area light. And let's actually turn off that infinite light there. And so you can see, well, we're intersecting there.
Oh yeah, you're
Go to
having to
my
fight the
top
position, fight the scale.
Yeah, you
You're
have
gonna
to,
have a lot of
and look at
fall
how
off.
underpowered that is now. So if I really, whoops, got out of our main view there. And let's actually turn off yeah, so actually it's a very smooth light. So it doesn't even, this is kind of interesting. This doesn't even like play nicely with our light. And I think the one way to get, or to the toon shading, it doesn't play well with the toon shading. And I think the only way you can get around that is if you bring the spread like way down and then crank this way up.
Well, now you're essentially just
See that?
recreating
Yeah.
the infinite
Just
light.
right, yeah, exactly. So that's why I say
Yeah.
like there's some specific lights that work well with this. One of the interesting things is that, and I'll show this a little bit later, is that you can actually mix a toon material with just your standard material nodes. You can actually, and then use like a color layer, and you can, apply toon materials on that diffuse shading coming from that that basic standard material node.
I got some
But you can
really
see that.
I get some really broad questions for you, just for all this being super new to me. Going all the way back when you
Yeah.
made that brand new toon material from the drop down. Essentially, is that just a
Yep.
regular material, but with the appropriate nodes already plugged in, or is it fundamentally different in some way?
Right. Absolutely. So typically, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Redshift, like Chris, I don't know how much you've messed with Redshift much, but here's a standard material here, and you can see that that's that Redshift standard material node that I was talking about, where you got your base color and all that stuff. So the big difference between Redshift Toon, this is the default, and the standard shader is they had to create this whole new Toon material node that basically replaces this Redshift standard node. And so
So
there's all different settings
inside of that standard
inside
material,
the Toon
can you
shader.
make a toon material inside of the standard material?
Yeah, you can. So
Cool.
if I just hit C and then type Toon, it's thinking about it.
Nice.
You can add that Toon material in here. And you could basically, because again, this Toon material is your Toon material. It's two ramps that are quantizing the shading of the reflection, the rim lighting, which I'll get to, and then the reflection on the base diffuse color. And then you, of course, you have this brand new node that actually plugs directly into the output that controls all your contours or your outlines. So if you were to rebuild this from scratch, you'd have to get your toon material, you'd need to get your contour node, and then you have to grab, and plug that in the contour area, and then grab all your ramps.
On that final output there, is the contour input a new thing? Like in the previous version, contour wouldn't have been there at all?
Right, absolutely.
Okay.
So yeah, in previous versions of Cinema 4D or Redshift, I mean, the contour is not there. So I had a lot of questions about that, because I also came out with this whole anime toon pack thing that maybe is still installed here. Is it? It's not. I just updated, so it's not here. But I'll show it a little bit later.
Yeah.
Some people opened up some of those pre-made materials and were like, everything is turning red, like it's got that flat red material giving an error, and that's just because you just haven't updated to the latest version of Redshift. So the Redshift version you want to be on is at least 3.6, and they actually just created a hot fix for Redshift that makes it 3.6.01. So make sure that you have that at least 3.6, because that is the version that has the toon material. So make sure you're updated before you go in here and like go to this drop down and you're like, where's the toon? That's
right.
why. Okay, so make sure you're updated. But then, yeah, you'll see this brand new contour node. The one thing that is kind of a bummer at this point is, and I showed this during my NAB presentation and in my school of motion tutorial on toon, is that I love to use the reference node. in the reference node, for those of you who don't know what it does, is you can basically reference different aspects of another material, specifically the output of another material. So you can see the source here, and right now we only have access to surface, displacement, and environment. What would be great is if they add contour, and what that allows you to do is I can go ahead and let me actually just create another toon material. So grab another toon. What I could effectively do, if that would have been supported, is I can have just this contour affect the contour of this second or this first material. So if this is material 1, this is material 2. If I want material 2 to control material 1 contour, I could go in here, do a reference node, and just plug that into the contour. But unfortunately, we don't have that. So hopefully in the future, you'll be able to do that where you can have one. Oh, you have a request? Yeah, as a request.
No,
yeah.
So anybody,
you can have,
if anybody from Maxon's in the chat, you got an official EJ request.
Yes. Yes, official me request. So yeah, but there are a lot of great things you can do otherwise with the reference node. Like you could have one material control, say the like halftone shading and stuff like that, which I'll get to in a little bit as well. So let me delete that. Do we have any other questions so far before we start moving?
A lot of people love the reference node.
Yeah, contour node draws the silhouette and internal lines. Yeah, and let's just apply
and
this
all
back
that
on
stuff
here
is
so we
like
actually
separate
see something.
concepts, right? So there's new base tone mapping, which is separate than the toon material, which is different than the contour. So in theory, you could make a photorealistic like wood material, but then put contours on it.
Right, absolutely. So like I said, you can like if I apply this Redshift standard material here, and I think the freeze is why is the freeze geometry freezing the material update? I don't know. But yeah, you can see we got our and let's actually put in that dome light again. So we got that background. Whoop. I'll put that, bring up that exposure, get those exposure bucks, and you can see that because we already have this contour node plugged into that contour area in this standard material, that we can apply outlines not only on toon materials but on just your normal objects here with your all your different settings here. So if I want red pug, why not? So this is actually really cool because one of the things with Sketch and Toon, Sketch and Toon was great, but to be able to apply like toon outlines to a normal material shaded object, that took some doing. I think you may have even had to have like done it in post. But yeah. So any other questions so far? Put this back on here.
My understanding, and you tell me, but this new stuff in Redshift, it's all shader based, so it's like calculating on the shader, where Sketch and Toon was more like a vector process. I mean, when you're talking about the actual lines that Sketch and Toon did, I think it would like vectorize the model. It's like, oh, what is the outline? Almost like you brought into Illustrator, where it's outputting an outline, and now you've got that outline. What do you want to do with that line? Where this is all shader based.
Right. So one of the things that has benefits, as far as I understand about, let me get it. Where's a good shading mode to see stuff? There we go. Quick shading. And just keep that off. One of the nice things about this being in render versus a post effect is that you have the benefit of putting outlines on something, and you can have motion blur and depth of field applied to it, as far as I understand it. And one of the downsides of, say, if there's a limitation from what I understand from the dev team, that having things as a post effect is limiting in those different ways, where you can't have motion blur applied to post effects stuff because it applies after motion blur is on there. But I don't know many people who actually would want to blur outlines.
Yeah.
Like if you're going cartoony, you might want a little bit more like smeary kind of thing that maybe you do in post. So what I've been told is that uh, there's a lot of stuff that can't be achieved, like applying different outlines. Like if you really want this to be sketchy on the outside here. So let me get my doodle paint here. So if you, one of the things you could do in Sketch and Toon was have like super sketchy lines like this, and you had like the, you know, stuff going on the outside of the model. With the in render stuff, you really can't do things that extend beyond the model too much. There's limits. So if I bring up this contour, and there's external and internal contours here, which I'll just skip to. I'll talk about the shading and stuff a little bit later. But as we're talking about, you know, post effects and how Sketch and Toon works versus Redshift Toon, is that you have in the contour area, you have the external. Let's actually just color them different things here. So that's red. So that's creating an outline on the external boundaries of our object here.
So it's
as you
outside
can
the
see,
model.
but it's not creating, yeah, on the model. So it's not creating the outlines that are in the little folds. So like folds and creases are probably terms that you're familiar with from Sketch and Toon, right, Chris? And that's what the internal controls. So you can see if I change this another color so you can actually see the difference, you can see where the internal creases and contours are creeping up there. So any little nooks and crannies of the object. And so if I increase this size, and then I think the max you can go is 32 and 32. So you can actually see that internal. Yeah, so
well, I guess I shouldn't use the word
lines.
internal, but just for clarity. So with Sketch and Toon, every line kind of was like right on that outer border of the model, and half the line was inside the model, and half the line was outside the model. The line always looks like it's inside the model. So in this context, external means the outline of the model, and internal means lines that are overlapping internally. But always the lines are within the model.
Right. And so to get lines outside of the model to do more of this kind of sketchy stuff, like I'm doing here, that would require a post effects version of the Toon shader. So you can see as I toggle the external on and off, you can see that that's just bleeding into the inside of the model. So that's, but you can still do things like make the line quality or the line thickness vary across the model and stuff like that, which you could do in Sketch and Toon too. So there are for version 1, this has a lot of functionality, but there are some things that will have to come later on that again are post effects. So that's kind of another thing too, is that, let me delete that doodle. One of the things is that you'll notice as I'm zooming in and out here, that line thickness stays the same. So as of right now, there's no, I forget what it was called in Sketch and Toon.
Distance.
It was like consistent. Yeah. Yeah. So there's not that yet. So if you were zooming in or zooming out, like this would just be, you know, kind of the same thing here. So that is the internal and external. And one of the nice things about the hotfix that they just added was previously, when you would add things, you would just get all these intersections and there's no way to remove them. Like, I don't want these big intersections on the eyes. I just maybe want big lines or contours on the outside of the model. So this detect separate meshes was added. So if I uncheck that, what that's going to do is say, okay, we're going to use this external outline, but we are going to ignore any objects that are in front of the mesh that has the Toon material on it, or any meshes that are intersecting the mesh. So if I turn off this internal, you'll see that that'll update. We'll no longer get that internal contour showing, which is good because now if I wanted to. Actually, it's weird. We're still getting it there. Um, yeah, that's funny. Uh, but one of the nice things is that now I could go in and have a lot more control. I can throw a separate contour on, say, the outline, so it's maybe a little bit thinner than the outline here. So there's that. This adds a ton more control here, and I can only assume that they're going to add more control of like being able to draw contours on splines. Can't do that with this iteration. Even being able to control, um, excuse me, like you can control the angle threshold here. So this is kind of like your like crease angle threshold. So this is almost like the lower this number is, like the lower the Phong angle tolerance where it's going to be drawing these internal lines. And then the depth threshold is more for if you have displacement. And so the depth of that displacement, if it's anything uh, uh, below 10, which I don't know what those units are, it'll draw a line. And so if I bring this low enough, you can start to see that we're almost getting this, whoa, totally locked in there.
Oh, yeah.
But you can see we're getting this kind of like cool, almost like cross hatching, but it's literally just putting a contour on your edges of your model.
Yeah,
so one thing that's super cool too, yeah. So one thing that's cool too is there's a normal type. So smooth normal is good for organic models like we have here. But if you have anything like CAD or anything like CAD models and you want to do like wireframe, like blueprints and stuff like that, that's more hard surface. This is where you can kind of achieve that really cool, like kind of sketch wireframe kind of deal. Yeah. So it's RoboPug.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. And so these are the two settings we have available to us now in this. And yeah. And so no, nothing tolerance here. But again, I can only assume that those types of things will be added in the future.
Somebody had a question. Let me scroll up. I think it's been there a little bit. Well, I've lost their question, but they're asking about the ability to do some sort of toon stuff on Pyro, but I would doubt that would apply to Pyro as like a volume render.
There is some, I haven't messed with it yet. Maybe towards the end of this we can switch it over to you, since you know all. I think they added something that has to coincides with the particle stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you wanted, like, it had to do with a mission, I think here. I'm not quite sure what that feature was, but they did demo something in the Maxon video that did have some kind of particles. I doubt it would have anything to do with any VDB stuff, because I think it's only.
My thought goes to like the actual volume, like actual volume rendering implies that it's detecting like the depth and the density and all this different stuff about the particles. And that just doesn't translate to a toon concept. But if you did want to do toon styled fire and smoke, you can and we won't do it right now, but you can always output your fire and your pyro as an actual volume, as like a volume mesher, like volume builder, volume mesher type setup. And then you could apply toon stuff on top of that, because that's a real model at that point. I think that's where you'd want to go with cartoony smoke and fire anyway. It's like, oh, it's a physical model, not some weird pseudo-transparent fuzzy thing.
Right, because the lines wouldn't know, like, where do you draw it when it's like 50% transparent or what. But yeah, actually, it's kind of funny because I did a like how to do cartoon fire with Sketch and Toon back in the day, and I did like Metaball and all that kind of stuff, and it's like, man, I gotta go and revisit that now, because now we have these new particle systems, and long gone are the days of using the Metaball, I think, because we've gone to the volume builder world. But yeah, a lot of stuff. Like there's all these things where it's like, oh, I used to do this like using the old system, and now it's like, oh man, there's just so many things to do.
Yeah.
Do they unless there's any more questions.
Well, there are well in in your actual base tone map there. You had the 5 different segments. Do they have any different presets in
Yep.
there, or is that just kind of like the default? If you click load preset, are there any more?
Yeah, so they don't have load
Okay,
preset.
that's just the
They
gradients.
didn't add anything new here, but
But you could make your own.
I made my own. Yeah, you can make your own.
Yeah.
So I can like let's do this. And you'll notice that each of these color chips are step interpolation, so that's important. If you wanted some kind of smoothing between these gradient knots, just click on one, and this is something that you could do to get like pretty interesting looks where it's like, okay, maybe I want that line to be super sharp, but I want this like cool airbrush kind of effect, which as I've been studying more about like, okay, how do they do anime shading and like what are some of the techniques that they use for like all the cell shading stuff that they do in real life? And that's one of the things is, one of the things that defines anime toon shading is you have this sharp contrast between the sharp line between the shadows, the specular highlights, and all that kind of stuff. But then some of them are even more detailed, and they have this kind of cool airbrush kind of effect there. That's like could be super subtle, but it adds a lot. So it's like if we didn't have that, it would just look like this. But we have this nice kind of subtle thing going on. This isn't the best color to use. Let's maybe do that. Let's do, yeah, that looks kind of fun. Do this. Yeah, ocean pie. So you can see this a little bit more clearly. Let's make this a little darker. So you could do this in other, in sketch and toon and stuff like that. But just to say you're not limited to just using these step interpolations. You can go in there and get this really nice, smooth or even cubic and just adjust these intermediate knots to get kind of interesting effects. And
Well,
like I said, the airbrushy kind of look.
them not limiting you. I mean, there's so many cool things because I'm pretty sure you could do things like I forget what it's called, but like you can do the material blender. So like, right, there's a toon material and you get your standard material, but I could imagine using
Yep.
the toon material, just making it a black shadow and then white, multiplying that on top of a standard shader. And now you've kind of got this cartoony black shadow that's got this hard cutoff that you could overlay to like start creating your own style of something. So just
Right,
the
absolutely.
open-ended
And
like
so
this
for
does that.
anyone, yeah, and so I wanted to demo exactly that just to show the flexibility here. So, like you were saying, Chris, like if you wanted to combine your standard material with the toon material on top, what you can do is just get a material blender. There we go. And so let's do our base material as that diffuse standard material, and then we got the layer 2 or layer so base material, and then layer 1 can be the toon. We output this to the surface, and you'll see what we have right now is we have that. Let's just go in here and let's do blue so it contrasts. So we got the blue diffuse shading going on with your roughness and all that kind of stuff going on. But what you can do in the material blender is go and say, you know what? I want to actually what this is only additive. Let's see.
Yeah.
What's
Well, so you need a mask maybe, like use the toon as a mask on top of them.
material layer? There we go. Yeah, this
Oh,
had oh no, not that. Dang it. Let's see. Material. I thought there was like a different material blender kind of thing. Does anyone in the chat know? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know why this is just additive because if you do color layer,
yeah. You
material
overlay,
layer,
multiply, but yeah, I don't know about the material layer.
material layer. Oh, but that I just did that. The blend type
But
is
that does
combine.
enable you to make a mask, so you could have parts of one, parts of the other via any alpha.
Yeah. So material layer. Let's just try this. So we got base. And you got your whoop. Did the same thing twice. Then plug this in here. And this will be color. Then we'll do this instead. Okay, there you go. That's a little bit better. You only I think this is, I'm assuming this is overlay.
Mm-hmm.
And this is add. So you can still see, like, what's combined. I'm not sure what blending mode that is, but you can see that, like, just what you were saying, Chris, you can have that sharp shadow there, but again, with that cool, like, airbrush look, that's kind of nice.
Yeah.
Let's change this to black here. And so that opens up a lot of stuff that you can do. I'm not quite sure why a color material layer does not have all of the different types of blending modes that a color layer would.
My
Because
assumption
here you have
there,
like your
because you could do
full.
it, you can break out a material, I think, in its individual components, and then once you're in a big, these material layers contain a bunch of stuff. They contain bumps and they have transparencies and a lot of things that don't make sense to, like, how do you multiply a transparency on a transparency? How do you multiply a bump on a bump? So I think once you get to the material layer, it's just like, well, where do you want one to appear and
Yeah,
where do you want the other to appear via a mask?
yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because color layer doesn't work. But I mean, this still looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
With this effect that you can have the contours. Yeah, I think that's important to point out, is that you don't need to just do the contours with just a toon material. You can indeed put a cool contour outline on just your normal. We're just going to plug that into the surface on your normal diffuse standard material, which
There's
is
a
really cool. So
question.
you can have, like,
There's a question about, can you drive the thickness with different things? Could you drive the thickness of the contour with a noise?
absolutely, yeah. So that get a little transparency there. It's cool.
Whoa.
So yeah, let's bring that back. So let's go. Let's delete that. Plug that back in. So we had a question about the contours. So in each of these contours, we have this thickness modifier here. So if I'll click the control button, grab both of those to add them to our node here, what I can do is get a ramp. So one thing I want to call out about the ramp node, because remember, the tone maps are just ramps that are preset to have these stepped interpolations here. So here's your default ramp. If we wanted to do this, we'll just change this to step. And you can see we got the same thing. One of the cool things they added to the ramp node in Redshift 3.6 is this exposure. So in the past, if you wanted to, like, actually, you know what, I want to adjust the shadows to take up even less of the actual darker areas, make the shadow a little bit smaller, you'd have to, like, okay, let's bring this all the way down. You're like, actually, you know what, let's bring it back, and you have to adjust all these nodes, especially if you had, multiple of these color chips in here. You'd have to go and adjust, like, all of these things, move them all to the left. With this exposure, this kind of adjusts the sliding of all these knots down here. So if you go exposure, you can see as we're going up, we're pushing all of these values down to the left almost here.
Yeah.
So if we bring this down and go below 0, you can see how we are just using this one slider to basically adjust whether these gradient knots are more to this side, that's more of the brighter side of the diffuse shading, or the darker side of the diffuse shading. So this exposure effect is super handy. And while I'm actually showing this exposure, and we're talking about, actually, I got a ramp here. I actually need some noise. As we're talking about some noises that can do different things, so let's get our max on noise. This is how you can control the different thicknesses here. So the thickness modifier, if I plug this max on noise into both of these thickness modifiers here, let's actually crank these up pretty high here. So if I solo that max on noise, you can see that the noise by default is super small. So if I go to the overall scale and crank that up a little bit, maybe let's try 20. Actually, let's go bigger, 80. And let's increase the contrast here. So note how this looks. If we unsolo, you'll see there we got that really cool sketchy variation there. And so this is really handy because this looks like it like some manga or something like that. And you can go, you know, very contrasty and bring this back, do something like that, or something that's really cool. If you want dotted lines, let's hit C and then grab our tile shader, and we'll go and let's get all white here. So it's using those black and white values to adjust the thickness of the contours there.
What does that look like raw?
So if we bring this raw,
how do the tiles map out?
yeah, like crap. So we'll grab a triplanar and we'll plug everything into here. Oops, not that one. There we go. And then with the triplanar tiles, it's always you got to make sure everything's over to the side here, and replace that. So now if we solo the triplanar version, there we go. That's a little bit better. Let's adjust the scale. Let's do it even more, and let's adjust the grout here. So it looks like a pretty nice dotted liney kind of thing. And now let's unsolo. Let's see what we get. Dotted lines.
Dotted lines. Very nice. Excellent.
Yeah. So you know, it's kind of a hacky way to do it. It would be great if you could just go in the contour and be like, actually do dotted line effect, and actually choose the type of dotted lines that you could use. Kind of like makes me think of if you want to do a dotted line effect or dot dash kind of thing in Illustrator, you have all those kind of presets. So that would be pretty cool. Because at this point it's all driven by the UVs, right? So if you have garbage UVs, you're kind of at the mercy of the triplanar. And while the dotted line effect kind of looks nice in some areas, it doesn't look so great like, you know, right here. Let's see if I can adjust some of this.
Yeah.
And so again, this is only applying on the inside of the model too. So that's something to think about as well, is that this isn't going to look as good as like the sketch and toon, because the dotted lines would probably look better if it was right along the edge or even pushed a little bit above the, like, offset from the actual mesh. And that's, again, something that you could do with sketch and toon. And when they implement the post effect version of this, you can have that kind of like offset printing thing where like the whole entire outline is kind of offset. So if I grab the doodle tool again, I'm like, whoop, come on, doodle. You could have like the outline kind of offset from the model in some places, and you know that I'm a terrible drawer. I'll delete that right away. But you can kind of see what you can do. But you can still get your dots and all that kind of stuff here. So let me delete these. And so, you know, this is really cool. I use this a lot to get really cool sketchy kind of things. If you wanted like more like chalk, for example, if we do like a Stupel and bring back the contrast here, we can get those types of effects. I'm not sure what the best noise for that kind of effect would be, but if we thicken, let's make this super thick, 32. So we're kind of getting like almost like a very thick paint stroke or something like that. So there's a lot of things you can do with all these different noises to get like whether it's chalk or a brush stroke. And I even made a whole like preset pack of these type of toon materials that you can just throw it on. You don't have to worry about like what's the best noise for this kind of thing and all that kind of stuff. But you can see you can get really cool sketchy looks just messing around with what type of noise that you're using and adjusting your low clip, your high clip, your contrast, your brightness, all that kind of stuff. So this almost looks like magic markery kind of thing.
Yeah.
So really, really cool stuff. Now, oh, did you have anything else to ask?
Some people are asking about the halftone stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
So yeah, let's move on from the outlines here. And one of the things I also want to show as we're talking about max on noise is you can also plug this into that exposure. Like if you wanted to break up that this wasn't so uniform of a like curve here, what you can do is grab your max on noise. Again, we'll make this kind of big here, and we'll plug this into the exposure and see how this makes this all kind of blobby. So that's a kind of a
lovely.
cool thing.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
Can you
So
change it to like a
yeah. So
really
then you can
make the noise like really tiny? I want to see if you get like a really scribbly
let's do.
edge.
Yeah. So you can
Yeah,
get like So you can get that like grainy type of effect really really easily.
yeah,
So this
like
is
almost like
really
a
cool.
stippled
Yeah.
almost look. That's cool. I was wondering how to
Yeah.
do that because I
Yeah.
didn't see any. I didn't see any input for like. I thought maybe it'd be like bump, like you do those types of effects in the old Sketch and Tune gradient shader with bump, but here, yeah, you just modify the exposure. That's super cool.
Yeah, so there's a couple ways to do it. There's the exposure, and then you can actually put this in the bump as well. Whoop, not bump blender. But I've found that you'll be able to see the difference pretty quick here too. So if I do this, plug this into because there is a bump node in the tune material.
Oh, really?
But yeah,
I did not notice it.
so right there, you can see that it
Oh,
looks
well.
like kind of sandpapery, but
Yeah.
a little bit of height bump strength goes a long way. So let's do like 0.05. And the problem with this is that, so let's go even
Yeah.
lower.
You kind of feel
Problem with
like
this is
that.
this is a bump map,
Yeah.
right? So like there's limits to how far you can push this. Now, if you were using a bigger noise, like, so that's with the bump. If I plug this back into the exposure, you can see that you can push this exposure a lot further and get the stippling
Yeah.
spreading out over the surface more because where the bump falls apart is if you want to have it spread more, you have to up the bump strength. And with upping the bump strength, you get that kind of bumpy look
Yeah. Well, it
there.
starts feeling three-dimensional instead of 2D because, well, I think
Right,
you're
exactly.
feeding in a full gradient from white to black and every gray in between, so you're getting that smooth transition.
Yeah.
I wonder if you were to essentially half tone or tone map the incoming max on noise and then pump that into the bump if you get back to being kind of sketchy. I like your exposure method. Like I'd say that is definitely the way to
Yeah, the
go.
exposure method's really handy. Let's try that real quick. So actually, let's just man click and drag. Alt input there. So you're still so this is quantized to this.
Yeah, if you can you remap the grade or reset the gradient to the original gradient. Actually, it doesn't look like there's a parameter to do that.
Yeah, so it's let me select all this. Oops, step. Did the wrong one. So you can see the bump. I've found the one thing I've found is that the bump is great for bigger noises. So if you go like 80,
Well,
well, even that. So you can see like
oh,
this step kind of thing
bizarre.
isn't really working too well.
Yeah, no, no, no. That's
Yeah,
horrible. It looks like he's infected.
yeah. But yeah, but if you put the max on noise in there, you can get this kind of stuff though.
Okay,
But
yeah.
again,
So bigger
this
one.
works a lot better. This looks a lot better with bigger noise. So the
Yeah.
smaller the noise, this kind
Yeah.
of again looks 3D. So that's why I would recommend, and I don't even know if like if the devs know about this, that you can just have this control the exposure. And what in effect that's doing, let's unclick that.
Yes, please.
What this is in effect doing is, growing things in and out here,
No, it's brilliant.
um, using the grayscale values.
And I mean, there's so
So,
many different
and another
interesting
thing
noises you
too,
could layer on top of each other. So,
yeah. Another thing too is you can add noise amount here in the ramp, and this actually creates
oh,
this kind of
striping.
interesting striping. Yeah, which is kind of, I don't know
Can you
why.
yank out the take out the max on noise for a second so we can see that in isolation? Or does it?
So we
Do we
got
see it for
noise
the?
amount.
Oh wow, weird. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's. I wonder what they're doing Oh, okay. I know what they're
yeah. I'm
doing
not sure what's
internally.
going on there with the ramp, but
Well,
like
I think what they're doing
if
is
I let's actually do
overlaying the original black to white ramp, the grayscale ramp, and they're
just
overlaying it with
across.
random noise. So then your final ramp is overlaying on the noise. I
Ooh.
mean, he looks delicious, but the
And so one thing I was just thinking about is like, okay, so you have the noise controlling the exposure.
oh, you're gonna drag it into the noise.
And put,
Whoa, that did.
yeah, actually, I'm actually gonna see like, can you remap this so it, yep. So you can kind of
Yeah.
see how much this grows across, I guess. Yeah, the change in the old range and the new range.
Now, if you set those back to default, I got a weird thing I want you to try. What happens if you feed that
Okay.
noise into the noise amount? It's probably going to look like nonsense, but or oh, does it not? It doesn't accept
Of
of.
course, needs a constant value.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
about the, yeah,
I think it would have been ugly. Maybe the slightest gradient would
yeah,
have done it, but that makes sense.
yeah,
Oh
can't
well,
do it.
it's all
Um,
good.
so yeah, so that's one handy thing you can do. And again, super small, you get this cool grainy thing. Super big, well, not that. Let's do, so super big, and you get like, it kind of breaks up. It makes it look a little bit more imperfect. And then of course, if you want to pull back on this, you can just change these grayscale values here to make it a little bit more subtle. Maybe you can go like 250. And so just adding that little bit of waviness there just makes everything look a little bit more organic than if we didn't have this, where it's a lot more kind of smooth looking.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if this
So
would be
let's talk
something you'd want to
about,
do. I don't know how fast your. I mean, you're going to probably have a pretty good machine there, but something I often people always complain in the sketch and tune system that there you get like pops and things wouldn't like as you spun around an object, a line would appear or disappear. But it made perfect sense. Like it was all behaving exactly as it should given the inputs. So for me, I
right.
was always like embrace the imperfections. Like get so if you can render out a few frames, I'd be curious where you're piping. Are you piping? Where's that noise coming from right now? Oh,
So I
you've got
actually
max on
got
noise
a
down.
few,
Where's that
I don't
variation
know if you
coming
can,
in?
so the noise is, yeah, the
That's the
variation's coming from the
thickness.
max on noise.
Yeah, but right now you've got variation
And then,
on on the tone map, but you don't have a noise plugged in.
oh, you want to put the noise back in here?
Is that just the natural model? You already looked a little bit offsetty. Yeah. So, well, what I
Yeah,
was
that's
going to
just the
say
model.
what I would say, what I would do is I would go into the max on noise setting here, make the animation speed crazy high, like 1,000. So essentially, there's no coherence frame to frame.
Yeah.
And then when you render out your animation, it's going to have this jittery look. So you just put like a little bit of it in,
Oh
and
yeah.
that's kind of
Yeah.
introducing like the imperfection of the artist making the contours perfect every time. It's like no, they're not perfect. It was done by hand. And so for me, I always loved
Right.
embracing the imperfection of it because even when you have these kind of these toony looking effects, if they're perfectly moving over the model, it starts looking 3D again because it's too perfect. I mean, I would even when I would do some crazy
Right.
sketchy stuff, I would even take a big giant displacer deformer throw it on the entire model, and just deform the entire thing. So frame by frame, there's just like these little offsets and imperfections. So a cube wasn't perfectly a cube. Oh, he's all rigged up.
Yep. Yeah, he's all rigged up. Let's see. There we go. So what I want to do is do a quick render so you can see both the sketchy animation and then just an example of how the lines look as an object rotates. So
actually, is this literally the model from the toy? I'm looking at it. And
one
like
of not the vinyl toy, but oh no!
Oh no!
Something's not controlled well.
Oh goodness!
Oh well, it works fine. Let's just see what that looks like.
I'm gonna pull. I'm gonna change the camera for a second. So here's both of us. I'm gonna make everybody jealous. Look, I've got one of EJ's little pugs.
Yeah, vinyl toy gonna be on sale soon.
Yep, I got a preview.
Stay tuned.
And the box is amazing as well. So
got the NAB special.
Little magnet seal on the top.
Magnet.
Great. Woo, how did this work? Yeah,
magnet was a must.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
All right, so
sorry for the interlude. Back to your screen.
We're gonna go render to picture viewer here. Actually, let's go. What size is this? Let's do 1080. Now I only got one GPU running here, so.
Well, and then the frame rate. I'm not sure how smooth the frame rate. We have to run in order for me to have a guest on. We have to do the video through Skype, and Skype is not the smoothest one. So I'm not even sure if I have like a pretty high frame rate from you. So,
and actually, oh, you know what? I can actually share some test renders for you in that Dropbox if you want to like show them off on your end.
Yeah, I could totally do
so
that.
While this, you know what would be helpful? All frames.
And then you have a really fast noise in this one.
Yeah.
No, this is you spinning around. Yeah.
Yeah, this is spinning around and with the noise.
Cool.
So let me in that Dropbox folder, let me send you some of the tests I did, like the sketchy tests, and maybe you can show it on your end, and hopefully the viewers would be able to see it a lot better than streaming it on my end. So let's see.
And we could do that while it's rendering if it syncs up quick enough.
Yeah. So here's that. Whoops. Copy. Don't move. Copy.
Oh, no. His model's inverting. Oh no.
Oh no.
Yep, stuff's popping in right away. All right, I'm gonna switch to my screen for a moment. Actually,
I got a few ones in there.
My guest desk. Desk plus cam, me plus guest plus me. How do I do my desktop? Open that up and okay. Hopefully this works. I'm switching to my screen. Okay, cool. We're on my screen. So, which one you want me to click on first? I got the BB or the BB
actually, one second, because I have one that shows a bunch of examples. Let me just find it really quick.
I need to. I got double EJ, so we're getting echo. Okay, that should be fixed now.
Whoa.
Cool, I fixed it. Yeah, it was still set up to having two guests, so it was instead of two guests,
gotcha.
Two EJs.
Doubled me. Okay. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to copy this here. So you should be getting one that is called Toon Pug Turnaround Styles. That should just V2. Be. Yep.
All right.
Yeah, so sync that. And that one is a good example of like the styles that you can get.
Yeah, nice and coherent.
And yeah, and nice. You don't see that popping. So that's the halftone. I can show how to do that.
Ooh, that's that noise.
And that's the grainy look.
Oh, look at those varied noises.
And that's really the nice brushes. And so what's cool is that yes, on the outside, because it's moving through the Maxon noise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what's cool is that like in the center though, it almost looks like a thick 3D stroke, like right by the collar.
Yeah,
like collar. That looks like a cool 3D stroke that's just kind of stuck. there.
Yeah, well, it's
So I haven't
very
tested if
gently
there's,
moving. Like, look at the beautiful, almost watercolory streaks you get because it's just barely moving.
yeah, and I love the water. So these are all from my, and actually, Chris, I'll send you the link to it. This is all from my anime toon pack that I have that has, I think it's got 80 different toon materials that have uh like all the cool like
Oh
little
yeah.
paintbrushy effects, like all these different anime and manga looks to it. I just threw it in the Skype chat there.
Have
But it's
you
just and it's
experimented?
also like just a great.
Oh, Skype chat.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's gonna be hard to find the Skype chat. It gets kind of buried.
Oh,
Oh, I
or I
see.
could
It's a
do it in
link.
Discord.
No, no, I got it. Okay, yeah. No, I'll put the
Okay.
link for this in the chats as well. So yeah, okay. Here's EJ's
You,
anime style tune pack for only $10. So I'll
yeah.
put a link to this.
You could get a half off. You can get a half off with anime 50 as a coupon code. So
Oh my goodness,
for your audience,
$5 for all of these.
save all the monies.
Look at all the
So yeah,
styles.
it's got all these different types of style, all the halftone, and these are really great too. Not only to just have like drag and drop ready tune materials, but just to see like all the different things you can do. Because I really went, and there's like a lot of there's a lot of things to do, like to push things like that. And I want to shout out Tim Clapham as well. Tim Clapham's got a really cool tune pack out too. While mine's more cartoon focused, he has a lot of like cool, like very techie style kind of stuff as well that he's selling.
Very nice.
But like both he and I kind of went to town on all this Toon Shader stuff when we're in the beta forums and stuff like that. So that's another render. Try to get like cool anime effects from a old model that I had from a few years ago.
Yeah.
And so that's actually, let's see if and so you yeah, actually what I'm gonna do since let's close out all my Slack notifications. Actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna render this this pug thing again without the turnaround, just so you can see the sketchy look. Because as it's rotating around, it's kind of hard to tell. So let me render this again. And
so you were talking about how the
so this
sketchy...
is what it looks like. You can see it kind of bouncing around, but it's kind of hard to tell with the rotate and the thing going on.
Yeah.
It's like kind of lifting his leg to pee or something.
Yeah. Yeah. We're probably
But
getting...
you can see
our frames per second are not amazing.
sketchiness. Yeah.
Now,
So
as a question, I don't know if this is the case, but and I don't know how Redshift interacts with it, but you've been feeding... You're physically spinning the pug, and like you said, the pug and the contour lines are passing through the big cloud of Maxon noise. But have you tried applying the noise as a 2-dimensional noise instead of a 3-dimensional noise? Because then it might be coherent.
Yeah, so that's what I want to that's what I want to try next. So I'll let this continue. It's only got one graphics card going. It's going 2 seconds a frame here.
Dude, I can't
complain.
complain
Okay,
about
so max on
speeds.
noise. Yeah, so let's see. Would that mean we will change the source from object to world? No, not world.
No, not world. Do they have... Oh, see, it would have to be... Wait. Are those the only two options?
Yeah, they don't have the 2D noise.
Wait, yeah,
they don't have that
UV,
2D noise.
I would think UV would be it. The input is the UVs.
But then would we have to go to we have to go to the material then and do...
Well, it depends on how the UVs look on
flat
the pug.
Mapping?
Well, if he's passing, that would go back to him passing through it. So I think you'd want it to be UV mapped. So if he had good UVs and you spun around, it's possible this would look coherent. But I'm not as familiar as I should be with the noises in Redshift.
You'll have to test that. And actually, because this is it's a very simple model. I mean, even the head's separate, so But I just don't want to get sidetracked with UV unwrapping and body paint and all
Yeah,
the
exactly. We can do those
joys of
experiments some on
that.
our own time.
Yeah. So let's just see what. So there you go. Got that cool sketchy look animating right there. Hopefully you can see that through the stream. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
with
we're getting like maybe 5 frames a second, so definitely see some jitter.
yeah. Yeah, so you
And
get
then
that
that
jitter,
same
and that's just the
jitter,
speed of.
yeah. I'd like to, if you want to render it again, can you also crank up the speed in the max on noise driving the tone map, just to see like that popping
Oh
around a
yeah,
bit?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. So
And
actually,
then it
when this
goes
is
to,
done, I'll just save this in the Dropbox here.
yeah, excellent. I'll play it back smooth. But yeah, for me, it would be the type of
Yeah.
thing where, yeah, I could see driving the noise slowly or using some sort of animation trick to like only have it pop like every fifth frame or something. Um, just to, yeah, there's a lot of ways you can like add imperfection. It's like when Quentin Tarantino and Robert Rodriguez were working on their double feature for Death Proof and blanking on the name of the
Oh
other one.
right.
But both of them were talking about, yeah, how much fun it was to try and make the movies look old timey and like all the ways they could mess it up and add filters and break the film and overexpose and do bad cuts. And it's like, how can we break it more and more and more? And I always feel like with sketch stuff, both Sketchatoon and the new Toon stuff, is you get two paths to go. One, and I can understand a lot of clients would be like, no, I want it to be clean and perfect. But it's like, no, but what makes Toon stuff fun is the imperfections.
Right. And I mean, there's a lot of. I'm not too familiar with a lot of that stuff, but um, I'm assuming that with you could render out this to an extent, go into After Effects and do Red Giant stuff, and
Yeah.
even I have a plugin called Boil It that adds even more boil on top of it, so you get that like 2D boil effect as
Yeah.
well.
Well, then
Let me
some people
save
were mentioning
this.
it. Some people were mentioning it early in the chat, and you're the one steering, so I didn't want to take over. But the my mesh to spline plugin can do things like create outlines
Yes.
automatically for you and create like even some internal lines, and then you just render those out as sketch line or not sketch lines, but you just render out in Redshift as a line, and that that adds on like tons and tons of power as well. So there's a lot of opportunities with the stuff that exists right now. And now that I've got the new
Right.
laptop, I
Yeah.
might be able to actually do some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. That shout out Winbush and what is it? Dell, HP,
HP, yeah, yeah.
HP.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure how much I can say, so I wanted to chat with Winbush about that before I
Yeah.
get into it.
So okay. So now we're rendering with both. So let's really crank up the speed.
Yeah, like just make the speed nonsense. At a certain point, as long as it's faster than 30 frames per second for coherence, it doesn't matter how big. So you can type in a million. Yeah, that'll work.
Ludicrous speed.
The hope is that on all that
So
lovely
let's
little
see.
shading, yeah, or you can already see it between those 2 frames, like the shading just popping. Yeah, look
Yep.
at that. I say I love that stuff.
Ooh.
And then you render whole
So
animation at like
this would even be good
15
with the
frames a
grain.
second. One more time.
Yeah. I was gonna say even with this would look really good if you brought the noise scale down and you got that grainy, super grainy noise too.
Yeah, that'd be like static or overlay both of them on top of each other. Like so many opportunities.
Yeah. And I mean the other thing too is that you can plug in image textures and stuff like that. And so I think there's even a thing in the texture node. Isn't there a way to like plug in max on noise into the offset so you could actually have like a very grungy texture and
Oh
have
yeah,
that kind of offset, so you could actually use that as the driver of this exposure versus a max on noise,
yeah, absolutely.
which is a
But
cool
even that
could be a
you
cool
could have a
workflow.
grunge material randomly offsetting in time, overlaying after the base tone map, or masked out to only be the
Yeah.
shadows of the tone map. So, like, if you start thinking about the stuff not as like, oh, the shader does all the work for you, but instead these are raw ingredients, and how do you want to mix and match them to make
Mhm.
exactly what you want to make? Like, that's where the power is.
I think that's cool, and that's again that is, and I'll just okay, well, that's done with that. But I think that's one of my first impressions of the Toon shader was like, oh man, there's a lot of things going on, but really this is just the flexibility of nodes. And if you just wanted to do the basic sketch and toony kind of stuff, like literally you don't even have to worry about the noises or the bumps or anything like that. You can just worry about these two nodes. So the toon material where the shading is coming from and the contour. And so if I go into here, one thing I want to show is that you can't immediately see the tone map, and we didn't even talk about reflection yet, but you can see if you want to see the tone map in the toon material versus having to go back and forth. Like if I want to change the base color here, and then what's actually happening if I twirl this down, that's our ramp. And so if I twirl this up, that gives a little bit more space here. And so you can see if I restart, I don't know why material 2 is no longer valid anymore. Maybe we just make a new one.
Full God, refresh maybe.
I didn't accidentally hit RT. So it's almost like it's like, no, I didn't hit that.
No.
All right, so let's see why that's invalid. I don't know why that would be. But let's go. All right, let's create a new material. Toon. Will this be valid? Come on, valid. There we go. Okay, so we'll delete that. And so what I was saying is you could go in to this toon material, and so here's there's the tone map. Here's the tone map for this as well, for the base color. And so these values are kind of like multiplied on top of whatever the base color is. So you can plug in just the color, or like I said before, you can have just a texture map if you had a character that you UV unwrapped and use body paint or substance painter, plug that in there. And then these shades are kind of overlaid or multiplied on top of it. So if I twirl this up and let's see, twirl this up, you can basically see we're kind of rebuilding the UI from the sketch and toon material, where here's your ramp that controls the diffuse. Here's your ramp that controls the, whoops, what did I just do? That controls the reflection. There it is. And what I would wish is that, and this was a feature request too, is that can we just get a nice pared down version where we can easily see without twirling and untwirling, to just see, okay, what's my ramp that's controlling the base diffuse? What's the ramp that's controlling the reflection? So I can easily adjust both these things at one go without having to hop between all these different nodes.
Well, we used
so
to
you'll
have
see the
really
reflection ramp.
Simple gradient. Remember the old gradient before they redid it? It was like so tiny, and now it's like, oh, now we got all these great controls, but it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge now. So actually, I guess you can twirl up a lot more. Whoops, twirled up too much. But then the other thing too is that we didn't cover yet is, so here's your reflection. You got your roughness that's going to kind of grow things out. You have your IOR if you want things super shiny. So you can either use Fresnel or not. And then there's our tone map. Again, this is like more additive. So you can add a hue in here, something like that. And then you have this rim, which is really interesting. So one of the things with like anime shading and cartoon shading is sometimes you got this like really cool rim light coming from behind the model. And so if you turn on this rim, you get this very 3D looking rim gradient effect, almost like a Fresnel effect on top. And so this kind of doesn't look too great on its own, but what we can do is command, click, and drag, create a new ramp. Let's rename this the rim tone map. And then just like the base color has a tone map slot, reflection has a tone map slot, so does the rim. And so if I hit Command or Control, click that tone map to reveal it here, plug that in there, and now we have that more sharp looking. Again, you could color this rim effect if you want to. You could either do it here or you could do it here.
Interesting.
So you get this really cool like outer rim effect that is really really nice. And again, this is one of those things where I like to kind of combine diffuse and uh, a little bit of smoothing. So let's do, so maybe we got a little something like this, where it's sharp, but then it's kind of like smooth out a little bit. No, something like that. I don't know. But so rim is really cool, but by default, if I go to the toon material and I go all the way down here, you can adjust the width, make that really big. But you can see that the rim light source is just coming from like straight behind the model. So this is yet another thing that was a feature request that I put in, where it's like, it would be cool if you could just like, if you had like actually use, it's almost like in Photoshop where you add a drop shadow, right? And you can have the shadow be right behind it, or you can control the global light and have the drop shadow or even the specular highlight or something go around the model. So it'd be cool if that was a way you can kind of control where the rim lighting is. But what they do have right now is this ability to define where the rim light source is coming from. So if I got my just normal, this is like our key light. And then if I want to, then let's actually create, because again, another light you can use is a point light. And so this, let's just rename this. This will be our rim light. You don't have to do that. You actually don't even need this to technically be on or active. But if I throw, if I throw this rim into this light linking area, you can see there's the rim. The rim's right here. You can see the rim lighting switched from behind the model to right underneath. And so now I can move this over here and I can adjust where that rim light's coming from, which is super cool. So you can kind of art direct that. You can use multiple rim lights as well. So if I want rim coming from the backside and maybe like under here, well, all I need to do is go into the Redshift toon, and I think the rim light linking area can handle up to 6 lights at this point. And so you can kind of control what's going on there. And so this isn't, the rim light's not controlled by anything that has to do with this. So if you didn't want the rim lights to contribute to the diffuse shading of the other of the model as a whole, so now you can see all these different specular highlights, what you can do is just turn these off. And so this will not allow the rim lights to contribute to, actually, let's just break that. Yeah, so now you can see this is contributing to the diffuse lighting. But if we go into the details, we can say, don't, you just turn that off from the diffuse.
Out of
Or
curiosity, could you swap instead of using a light? Can you just use like a null, or does it have to be a light?
So let's see. I think they're trying to make it so it could be any object, but I think as of right now, let's just try null.
No.
As of right now, you can't put any other object in a light.
So a light,
but technically, you don't
off.
even. Yeah, so technically, you don't even need, from what I understood, and some of this is, this is version 1. Sometimes 60% of the time it works every time, kind of thing. Because technically, you're not even like, this is almost like it's supposed to be like a dummy object, where technically you could have just the position information from this, and it's not going to care about the intensity or anything, at least as far as the rim lighting strength goes, because the rim lighting strength is all controlled right here.
Yeah, which is, I think the way you'd want it to be. Like, that works really nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I could see you wanting, maybe you could take I could see having every light, maybe it took the color of the light, like as a constant, so you could have a bottom yellow rim light and the upper blue rim light type of thing. But outside of that, I don't see any need for them to be a light. But yeah, that's just the way it works, and perfect workaround.
Yeah, and actually that's a good point. Like, I don't think you can inherit the color here.
No.
One of the things that I haven't quite wrapped my head around is each of these modes. So this is pretty straightforward. And this is whether you have like a light and shadow that has an opaque shadow. So that means you can adjust the opacity of the shadow, or you just have light and shadow where if you're dialing down the shadows, it's actually going through all of the different shades in your tone map there. But in the reflection, there's this stylized option where I don't quite understand it. But if I go into this rim here, does that do anything? It's actually, so if I wanted, actually, I'll create a new.
You are still tone mapping the
a new
reflection. I don't know if that would have any effect.
Yeah, actually, let's go in here, and I'm gonna make this new toon and make it black, and I'll put this on the pupils. There we go. So we got the pupils there. And then what we can do is let's create a new point light. And this will just be like the specular highlight for the pupils. So I spec. And then let's drag this into there. Theoretically, we should be able to use this.
Oh, I think I understand what it's supposed to do.
You're supposed to, or you can see it in there a little bit. Let's, again, all these lights are very underpowered. So we got this here.
Anime highlight.
So you can just have like specular highlights on the eyes. But you can also kind of see it's controlling the, let's just turn the shadows off here. Okay, so that's the eye specular, but it's still, and this is a bug that I submitted, but the specular highlight is actually controlling the rim light, even though this isn't in the rim light list. So there's something with like light linking that is a little bit buggy, but I haven't gotten quite a handle on stylized other than you can use this light link here and just have one light control it. And so I think with this, yep, you can actually put that color in there. That's cool. And that contributes to that specular highlight.
Yeah, well, that just, it just, to me, this automatically feels like, oh, you turn that on when you want to do an anime eye highlight where you put like 3 lights, different size circles, like line them up kind of near each other and move them as a group.
Right. Cool. Yeah. So yeah. So that's that. Oh man, I haven't even talked about the halftone thing yet. Yeah. So let's actually do that.
Yeah, we still got some time.
When finish off with that and get any more questions we may have.
Yeah, we got about a half hour, everybody. So if you have any questions, I mean, it looks like we're gonna end up spending the whole episode on the toon stuff, which I'm totally cool with. So if anybody has any questions, get them in the chat before it's too late and before it's 4 more years until EJ's a guest.
Yeah. You'll have to hold your questions for another 4 years when, hey, I mean, that's a good time to do it again.
Well, do you remember?
You can see that
the last time you were a guest was before all of the pandemic stuff properly hit because we were doing jokey renders about toilet paper.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's why the toilet paper thing happened.
Yep.
I was wondering, why did we do toilet paper rolls? That's why. Okay. Let's go to toon and let's get out of this stylized here. Whoop. Okay. And so let's do that halftone. So for halftone, it's actually pretty handy node. So it's just a tone map pattern. And what this does is plugs into the base tone map or the reflection or the rim. So you can plug this to anywhere that a tone map would normally go. And so immediately you got this halftone. And nice. I've been told that they're going to add more things in here, like presets as far as like cross hatching and lines.
Or custom.
As of right now, if you wanted to do the line stuff, like you would plug that, you'd get a tile shader, plug the tiles into that exposure and get the things that way. Um,
What
did
does
you
the
have
tone
something
map
to say, Chris?
pattern look like if you feed it directly into surface? It might be kind of
Into sir.
nonsense.
Oh,
Yeah. Okay. I was wondering
yeah.
what it would do, but
Let's change the
not
color
much.
here.
All right. It
Yeah, nothing.
needs to be a tone
Looks
map.
like nothing. That's what it looks like. And so you can see how you can change the colors here. You can change the scale.
What's interesting is it seems automatically to be screen space based.
Yes. So it's almost like, yeah, you just flatly put this on here. And so that's where I'm saying, like, they should be able to do something where if you wanted a flat texture or a flat max on noise or a flat tiles shader to get that dotted line effect and stuff like that,
Yeah.
I could assume that this is where this would happen. So let's just say you wanted to control, like, okay, how is this being spread across my geometry? That's where you have this intensity override. If I hit control and click, this is where you can do the whole get a ramp node in here. And this is where you can kind of control the overall, like, where's the thickness of all these dots?
Looks like he's got a
How does
beard
that
now.
work? Yeah. And so let me actually reset this to default because you actually want like a smoother interpolation here. So you can see how this works. So if I go all the way over here, see how the thicker dots are here. But if I move this dot over here, you can see we got smaller dots and then bleeding into these bigger dot blobs here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like you're
And
pretty
of
much
course we can
driving the
use that.
dot scale.
Yeah. Yeah, across the surface. And you can also do the exposure, so you can kind of adjust things. And so this is pretty handy to get the halftone effect.
That's powerful.
Let's see. Let's see. Here's the sine wave, so you can get these little sine wavy things. A grid. I wish they had lines, just like a halftone or like a cross-hatchy thing. But one thing that's super cool that you can do, if I make this spread out a little bit more, let's do the underexposed there. So a little something like this. And one of my renders showed this, but you can actually kind of double up on these halftone patterns using a color layer. So color layer.
Oh, I know where you're going with it. That would be cool.
So if you want to do like split RGB stuff or whatever, so you got
where you could do like white dots, which are highlighted, or they're bigger when they're lighter.
Yeah. So they got that, and then we'll duplicate this. Do that in color there, and then go to color layer. And do an overlay, but then let's change this color to something else. Even adjust this. Actually go into here, adjust the scale slightly. Is everything set up right? So we got that tone map, this tone map, and then average. There you go. So you can kind of see everything's kind of blending together. Do add. Yeah, there we go. So this is just kind of like offsetting this pattern by just
by changing
offsetting the scale slightly. So you can get these cool like offset printing, halftone effects and stuff like that.
Can you try the thing I said? Could you invert the, well, where would we invert the colors? Yeah, output it as white and reverse the gradient. So now the darker dots, I think, want to be in the lighter areas, and now make the dots be white instead of black.
So that's on this.
So I think that, that becomes white, the other becomes black, and then you lighten. Yeah, look at that. So you got highlighting, highlighting dots, and then darkening dots.
Yes. Yeah, that's cool. And so you can also plug this into the rim here, or let's see. Actually, we would duplicate this, plug this into the rim. Come on, rim tone map. And now, well, hold on, let's do this. There you go. So now you're getting this kind of cool. Let's just change this to that.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got
See,
this
once you
rim.
start layering this up, look how much power, like you just exposed,
Yeah.
artistically speaking, like so many control points now. Like you got all these different halftones with different colors, how they overlay, where they're going to get applied, how large they're going to be. And you could just continue offsetting them from each other. So yeah, just by layering up a couple of the tone maps and a couple of the halftone maps, or the tone map pattern, like that's crazy, the amount that you can control now.
Yeah, so one of the, and you know, this is your, you want to do your Spider-Verse effect. Boom. There you go.
Yeah.
Got something a little bit like that. Someone asked, does Redshift Toon support transparency? And it absolutely does. You have your opacity right here. So you can kind of just bring this down. Kind of looks a little weird.
Yeah, it looks cool though.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It's kind of a little Tim Burton.
But you can see how you could just get the outlines if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Here. That's interesting. What's going on? The body there.
Demi was also asking if the toon shade, can you create toon shadows on the floor, perhaps? Like, could you make just a half-tone shadow? I'm sorry, a tone map pattern, half-tone shadow on the floor. So speckled shadow. Is that possible?
Yeah. So for that, I think that's not even like a toon thing. That's just applying like the halftone material on. So let's actually just get a floor in here. Does this have a floor? We get a backdrop from this scene. There's a backdrop. You can see that's just a sharp shadow, and that's just coming from the shadow. So you can see, well, that's all the halftone stuff going on there.
Yeah. But essentially, we want to see that same shadow you're doing, but can you apply the halftone pattern on top of it?
To just the shadow. Yeah. So let's do this. Let's delete all this stuff. Let's get rid of the rim. And what's the color here? Okay, so for the shadow, pretty sure, let's get rid of all these rims, the eye specs. We just got this key light here. And so I think what you have to do is, I think it's this add a graph thing. I haven't quite figured out what the deal is, but I think it's, and it crashed. Didn't want to do the shadows.
All right, we'll pop up on screen.
It'll pop up here. Hi, everybody. Yeah, that's a good question. You can do it, and I think it's doing something with the texture that you can apply to a shadow from a light. But yeah, Vivana, yeah, Hello Lux. Toon Pack's got some cool stuff going on in his pack too. Yeah, Redshift getting some Arnold Toon features. Let's see. Let's get this stuff back again. Let's try to do.
I think your share screen might have crashed. Yeah.
Yeah, it did. Well, I got to do it again.
Yeah, let me know when it's up. It should automatically feed back in when you hit it.
Okay, hopefully it's working.
All right, let's click in the button. Still dark. Okay, cool. You're popped back in.
Woo! All right, there we go. We're back. So the shadow, and here's an example scene of all the different things and all the different, like I got a couple rim lights, couple reflection lights. So I got one light on this side driving the reflection, the specular highlight there. Another reflection light here, driving the specular reflection on this side. And then here's this shadow. And this shadow's faded out because I just have a disc with a disc with a ramp, a circular ramp that's just in the opacity slot there. So nothing fancy going on there. Yeah. But as far as the shadow goes, let's try this again. So we have the key light, add the graph. Because effectively what you're doing is you can't do halftone in the, actually, let's try it. So if I have let's try this red material here. Redshifts had enough today, I think. Let's apply this here. And
no shadow.
No shadow there. Let's make sure that it has a shadow. It's casting a shadow. And so let's actually delete that. I've not quite gotten my head wrapped around the whole add graph thing here. Let's see.
Yeah, I literally don't know what that is.
Why is that all? Why is this all? Is this the duplicate here? No, yeah. Here's the duplicate. This is for the floor. Come on, baby. Let's see if my system reset to using both GPUs. It does not like streaming with both GPUs going.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Let's see. Oh, no. Maybe I'll try the other one. We'll see. Okay, here is the... Okay, this is the floor. And then if we change this... Let's just delete all these things.
All right, you're almost back to scratch here.
Yeah. So there is... The shadow should be the darkest. Go gray there. Step. Step. Whoop. What? Oh, that's cubic. Step.
And your exposure is pretty low.
So you can... Yeah.
I'm not sure what default is.
So I think this is kind of getting blown out here, I think. Let's see.
Yeah.
Reflection weight. Oh, what's going on? Why it's not updating? So this should be got the base tone map, and that's on this. Let's try something here. Why does that have a diffuse thing going on?
I don't know. I mean, I would maybe just start from a new toon material.
Oh, there we go.
So you don't have any baggage coming in. Oh, what do you have now?
We got something going on now. Okay, so there's the shadow. So the problem is that if I do halftone, tone map pattern. There we go.
Yeah.
Plug this into there. And then we got the base tone map to plug into the intensity override. See that if we try to invert this, there we go. So you get the halftone in the shadow there.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of like
the opposite.
An overlay.
But is it just
pattern?
too big? Like, go back to, don't invert it like you did. So if you do that, then it is shadow. Now, is it just too dark? Do we do in the mapping you did? Do you just want to make the black not black? Like start going with a lighter gray so that it doesn't, because essentially it seems like if you tell the halftone, yeah, there you go. So if you tell the halftone to be full
There we go.
black, the circles are so big that they overlap each other. It just turns pure black. So if you don't go all the way
Yeah.
black, then you start seeing it. Now, my question would be: is if you were casting a shadow that had a little bit more softer fall off, would we see the scale go? So right now you probably got like a really sharp infinite light, but if that was a
Right.
soft diffuse light, would we see a nice kind of fall off on there or not?
So let's see. Where is this? So this is the key light. That's just a.
We kind of I think you put
It's
the
just
disc
a.
back, so we've lost the shadow.
Yeah. Let's see. Let's go right overhead here. Oh, that's the reflection light. Whoops. Key light.
Okay, cool.
Okay,
Now we got
there's
some
the shadow.
but this is a
Now we got the
key
shadow.
light. So yeah, if that was a soft,
So this is just a point light.
yeah.
So if we crank this high enough, that kind of blows everything out. So I think we might have to do like just the include here. That's weird. There we go. Activate shadows. So this is just
does
for
a point light give a soft shadow?
So point light, yes. But it looks like it's not doing anything. Oh wait, kind of is on the edges there. Let's crank this up.
Oh, there you go.
There we go.
Okay, now you made that gray
Oh.
material, or maybe it's just the brightness here. Yeah, see how much of a fall off we can get on that.
All right, so you mean go back into the dots here and
Yeah,
adjust
and then that could go darker. Black, it's might go. Whoa, that's
nope.
weird.
Too dark.
Well, why did the dots get so dang tiny?
Oh, because this is driving the size of the dots. So actually with this, we don't actually, I don't know why I changed this. This we want smooth. There we go.
So what's
what's
controlling the darkness of him?
So that would be this.
Okay, maybe the shadow just
want
doesn't
it
get that dark.
Just to be.
Well, I'm just at least on my screen, I'm not really seeing the halftone come through. It's like
yeah, it's really
tiny.
It's not even coming through at all.
Yeah, that's what I see. Like on that kind of rim,
so if we
they're showing up, but
yeah, so you can see these tiny dots,
but they're consistent. I don't see varied scale based on the fall off of the shadow.
Yeah, let's see. Make this to 1. So let's adjust. Because no matter where I put this, and so that's why I'm thinking that. Okay, so we're actually getting some thicker dots here.
Sort of. I mean, I kind of distinguish between those rim light ones and the ones on the ground.
So now you can kind of see. Yeah,
so
the shadow itself is just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not sure we're getting anything.
I'm not quite sure. I think.
Shadow.
Yeah, I think as far as it works now, it's a limitation, and you can only get a flat pattern to show up like this. Because I've even seen, I think in the forums they tried to do this, and they were doing, the sine waves, and it was just like this. Like it was just a consistent. It was almost like just putting a pattern.
Yeah.
On that shadow. So I'm assuming that this isn't possible yet, but
I'd have to do some like really isolated tests,
Yeah.
We got
we
got a lot of variables here.
Yeah, because right now it's either on or it's off, kind of feels like. Unless it's like part of the diffuse shading here. Actually, I wonder if
Yeah. Well, we're just not in a good testing environment here. We got a lot of lights, a lot of different materials.
Right, exactly.
the angles.
Testing is not a good live stream content.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, does anybody have any
Yeah.
final questions? We've got 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
Welcome.
But yeah, there's a ton of stuff to do. I'm trying to think what else to show that I didn't yet.
Oh,
Let's get the basketball guy here. So here you can see I did 2 rim lights, and actually an alternative to the halftone shader. Here, I'll show this. So we got this orange material that's on the basketball.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did to do that was I plugged the tile shader into the bump map. So sometimes I found that like you don't even need the bump map node for this.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes you just plug this into here. So the cool thing about this plugging in here is we're getting the halftony type of effect without that tone map pattern. So here we can get lines.
Oh, okay.
So if you wanted
and
to
this
do
would also be respecting
lines
your
like that.
UVs probably. So you could be doing frontal projection or
Right.
proper UV unwrapping.
Yeah. So you can get your UV channel in there. So you can get kind of interesting effects here. Let's actually see what this looks like with the bump. Whoop.
Yeah, that's just the bump.
Here.
That's interesting. Wow.
And then again, a little bit of bump goes a long way. And let's change the tiles to U. So now, let me actually zoom in on that. Bar. Wait for it. So you can see that
does
we're
look very much like a
this...
bump. Yeah.
Yeah.
But then yank it out of the bump map you had. Feed it in directly. I'm just curious what the difference is.
Yeah, the one thing I found is that
see that got rid of the bump.
The smaller the noise or the bump, the more not even using a bump map works better for some reason. Actually, that doesn't look that bad. But you're still seeing
has
that
dimension.
Like,
it has dimension that isn't very 2D. But I mean, it looks good,
right?
But it's got more of a 3D vibe.
Yeah, and so actually, let's see.
What if you did the exposure?
Yeah,
I really
actually
like
let's put
trick.
this. Let's plug this into the rim. So this is the rim tone map. Exposure. So now you can see, actually on that rim, you're not getting it too much.
I think I saw it on the bottom left, all right.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the master orange material, what would that look like if you kill off the bump but plug it into the exposure?
Yeah, so this is looking pretty cool. Like it's like a stylized
just implying
shading.
The shape. Well, implying that the texture via the transition from the rim to the normal surface. Like that's a really cool, artistic way of showing the texture.
Yeah, and you can get these cool different levels too. Of the different levels of shading with the reflection and all that kind of stuff. So this is actually, I have the reflection tone map in the base tone map. Just got to make sure you name things correctly or you'll get real mixed up real quick. Again, these are just ramps. I'm just renaming them tone maps.
Yeah.
And so let's actually even plug this into the exposure thing. So the exposure, using the different things with the exposure is something I've not seen people really mess around with yet. But from limited experiments, even right now, like also play around with like different grayscale values in each of these different color chips, and you get like this kind of cool, sketchy thing going on. Whoa.
Yep, lost him.
Got too big.
Too big.
So even that's kind of cool too, with the
Yeah,
big tiles.
implying the lines while not being so tiny that they don't look sketchy anymore.
Do some bricks, circles. So circles, you're getting your halftone effect. But the only thing with this is that uh the dots aren't getting, actually I guess they are kind of getting bigger. But that's where you want like the
I don't think.
halftone
Yeah,
thing.
halftone will scale your dots. This type of thing.
Yeah, this is just adding a pattern basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this is essentially
So
offsetting the transition from one spot to another, showing the pattern, which by itself is really cool.
this is cool if you want like got go reptile. Let's get some rings. Actually, this is pretty cool with rings.
Yeah. I mean,
That kind of
every
cool
single one you've
roundy
piped in
effect.
there has looked good.
Yeah. So this is, I mean, this is where like the past, like preparing for NAB, I just kind of immersed myself in all this,
Yeah.
just to see how far you can go. And it's really, I mean, there's at first glance, it looks like there's not a lot of settings, right? But once you start going down these rabbit holes of like, oh, I could use tile shaders, and we haven't even like messed around with like, what if I had a watercolor texture grunge map or something like that to
Yeah.
really start playing around.
It's not
Actually,
something
is
for
there
us to
anything
pursue.
here?
It's not something to pursue here, but what keeps popping into my head is the idea of a second model that's got some uniform displacement, so it makes it a little bit bigger, so that if you displaced it out one unit, then in theory you could add thickness inside and out, escaping your model, um, and then make the rest of it transparent, which might kill render times, but that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
But
So
that's a
here's
dangerous
just like
line
a
of
grunge.
exploration.
So this is just pulled in this grunge map here, and then just the gamma. See what we got. Make this a little smaller. It's bigger, smaller, right?
Feed it into the exposure. I love the exposure trick.
Oh, it is.
It is.
And then let's
Oh,
remap it with a ramp.
yeah. Make it
Whoops.
more.
Oh,
It's real.
crap.
It's real subtle right
Don't
now.
see.
I don't even see it.
Yeah, let's crush the one thing and I don't know if this, because Chris, you probably know the theory behind like why there isn't like a contrast slider in here versus like, oh, you have to get another node to do that, or you got to get a ramp to add the contrast.
I mean, they're just trying to make everything bite sized.
Yeah, it's like that's some crushed values there. Can't really see too much.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it at all, as far as I can tell.
It's very, very subtle along the edge. It's actually, we get more of this.
Can you solo that base tone map? The one you were just adjusting?
Oh,
Yeah. Interesting.
that looks weird. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. See,
Let's do
it's not doing anything
this.
there. Weird. Yeah, maybe I'm just not following what this base tone map is doing.
Yeah, this looks interesting. I don't know if that's UVs or what that is. But yeah, you can slightly see something going on the edge there. So we got the ramp, base tone map. Oh, I got a ramp going into a ramp. That's weird. Push this even more. Just trying to get this texture to come through a little bit more. Let's try that bump map trick just to finish it up.
Yeah, the bump map had been working nice.
Yeah, not bump blender. Bump. Why is bump? Yeah,
Yeah.
BB
Why does that come in first?
shows up first.
Oh, yeah, it's the first one. But
BB
they
versus
they
B.
programmed in everything that like have priorities. So like the common ones should pop up with a higher priority.
Yeah.
I
Okay,
can
so
definitely see
that's.
Wait,
Yep.
bypass the bump map. Do your trick of no bump map.
Oh yeah. No bump map. Okay, so you're seeing a little bit
Yeah. See,
jankiness
I
going
like
on
that.
there.
I like that better because
So
you
that's
get the
pretty cool.
straight up jump from one to another instead of this. It's that smooth transition from one to another that makes the bump look 3D and not 2D. But when it just kind of does that
Right.
offset, it looks great.
Yeah, so you could, you know, put
Yeah,
this
that's
in
starting
the
to grunge it up a bit.
base color.
Oh,
So you got grungy, grungy. Get the outline going. Even plug this into the thickness modifier. Grunge up the thickness there. Let's go 32. 32. So you can kind of see. But yeah, tons of stuff you can do. Yeah, you can start to see a little bit of the grunginess on the edge. Let's actually zoom in.
yeah. Well, it's just a full on grunge map now.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
once we get this all
Super.
super dialed in,
Yeah, this is nice.
the opportunities are going to be endless on this.
Yeah. Like even funny part is um I'm zoomed in, right? This is the biggest you can go with the texture or with the outline here.
Hmm.
Remove the modifier. You can see that that's full on 32 thickness.
And that's the
So when you
biggest.
zoom in, it doesn't look big. You zoom out, it looks super big.
Yeah. But like you said, it needs some sort of distance calculation or screen space
Yeah,
calculation. So
yeah.
that'll
So I'm
be
hoping that that comes in time for sure. Um, but yeah, like a crash course in what you can do. Yeah, that looks super cool. So look at
yeah,
that. So that's the this grunge map plugged into the super thick uh, contour, and you get this
yeah,
really cool. Looks like a thick, like uh, you know, thick black brush
yeah, like a messy
paint
ink.
stroke, which
Yeah.
looks super cool. The Yukio is that Yukio-e? Yukio-e?
Oh, I know what you're
Yeah.
talking about, but I have no idea how to pronounce it.
Like the Japanese, the big Japanese, like big paint stroke kind of thing. Yeah, that looks cool.
Yeah. We got Chad in the chat, and he is mentioning that it does currently calculate as screen space, so we need it to be able to calculate not in screen space.
Yeah. What's up, Chad?
But let's see. I think we're good to wrap up. You just went for a full 2 hours. I think this is the first time I've ever had a guest, and we never swapped to my computer one time, which is great. That's the
I
best we
did
can
all the
have
heavy
guest.
lifting here, man.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's when we jump into a
That's
topic
all
that I
right.
literally have never touched.
Well, you know, you need a break after that 4 hour tutorial
Yep.
with
Still
particles.
exhausted.
So that's the one thing where I've been, we've kind of been on opposite worlds where I've been in Toon world, you've been in particle land, and we just need to like share, do like a mind meld kind of thing here.
Yeah, exactly.
So we'll
We
have
need
to
to
watch
make.
next week if you do particles.
Yeah. Well, Andy Needham's supposed to be a guest, but probably not for a couple of weeks yet.
Ooh,
So we'll see how that goes. But I'm going to
nice.
try and have more guests on this season. Seems to be working pretty well. And for anybody tuning in next week, we'll be able to tinker around on the new powerful laptop. Hopefully, we can actually do some Redshift stuff now. Because the big problem before was whenever I activated Redshift, it would like kill the stream. But now it's being
Oh,
captured on a different computer entirely. So those two things should be unrelated.
yeah. Because you'll run into the whole streaming, screen sharing, viewing, and your graphics cards just start
Yeah,
smoking.
exactly. But I think that's going to wrap this one up. Do you have anything else you want to plug, EJ? I'm going to put EJ's anime toon shader pack in the chat again. I think somebody already just
Yeah,
picked it up.
that's on sale right now.
Oh
Got
yeah,
some fun stuff going on at School of Motion.
what's the school?
Got my brand new
What's the
intro to
discount code?
C40 course. Anime 50 for 50% off.
Anime 50. Code Anime 50. And then, sorry, what was that about School of Motion?
Oh, School of Motion. I totally updated my old Cinema 4D Intro to Cinema 4D class called Cinema 4D Basecamp. And that I just wrapped that up like a couple months ago. So if you've been waiting to take it, but been waiting for it to get updated to the latest and greatest Cinema 4D versions and all that kind of stuff, now's the time to get it because it's all fresh and new. And I also have a way more organized tutorial if you want another recap of all the toon shader settings from Redshift over at the School of Motion YouTube as well. And then I also did a presentation of it at NAB. So if you want to know all about the Redshift toon stuff, just find me. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm really excited to see where this. Yeah, right. But I mean, that's the fun stuff. Like that's how I got into all the sketching toon stuff, where I was just like, wow, there's so many things you can do. And I feel like it takes someone like, oh, we got matching cups too.
Oh, we do. The best cup. I don't even use the lid.
Yeah.
These cups are so good. If you fall asleep with ice in the cup, you wake up the next morning and there's still ice.
Still ice.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. Maxon makes even good tumblers. Very good. What was I saying? Oh yeah, with the sketching toon stuff, like I feel like it needs someone like you or I that's in a position that's in education. And I know like Chad probably I know he went really deep in the Arnold toon shader. I know that's a very unwieldy beast of a toon shader from what I've heard. Like it takes people like us to really dive in and figure out all the things, because it took me a while to like really wrap my head around the Redshift toon, just because, you know, I'm fluent in sketching toon and how that worked, and like what can you do, what can't you do in this new one. And but it's like once you find out one thing, like the exposure, it's like, oh, that opens up this whole new world of possibilities, and then you really start going down the rabbit hole. And so yeah, really cool, fun stuff. And I'm sure with the particle stuff, it's the same way, where you're like, everyone's just kind of surface level, but you know, Chris, you're doing 4-hour tutorials on it, so it's like, all right, I'm just gonna wait for Chris to figure it out and then just follow him.
That's my job. Figure it out and then get all technical, and then try and explain it to people in like a friendly, artistic way. It's always the goal.
Yes, explain it to me like I'm 5.
Let's see. So everybody, make sure you follow EJ at all the things. So it's at iDesign. If you're on YouTube, I put all of his links below in the description already. And check out his stuff at School of Motion. And I don't know, maybe get EJ on again for a stream later in the season. I'm sure there's always going to be new stuff to talk about. With Cinema releasing new versions every, like 3 versions a year, it seems to be the average right now. I'm sure. Well, cross my fingers. Literally, I don't know, but you know, I'm sure there'll be some updates to the toon stuff as time goes on.
Well, I mean, they released the new update the week before NAB. And literally while NAB, they updated Redshift to have that intersection button or checkbox. So it's like, if it's urgent, like they can get things out. And that's kind of the nice thing about this new cycle they've been on, where it's like, okay, we got this thing that should be very helpful. Let's push it out. Let's not wait for anything else.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's going to wrap this up. Thank you so much, EJ, for presenting all the crazy Redshift toon stuff. Thank you, everybody in the chat, for coming and hanging out and asking questions, as always. This is episode 2 of season 6, so we'll see how many episodes we can get in. It was a late start to the season because I was hoping for a new machine, but that should wrap this one up. Thanks again, EJ, and I'll see everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everybody.
Boom. The credits are missing. Okay, I'll just click Slicer ad. Bye-bye, everybody.